Good afternoon from Nikki and from me from Castle Goring. Well, today is going to be quite odious because we are going to be wading through a sea of feces as I review Funding, Freedom and Finding Freebies. Many of you asked me to do it, and I am happy to oblige. Yes, some of you were sensitive enough to observe that I actually didn't really want to be swimming in this rather odoriferous sea. But you know, we are going to voluntarily and willingly make sacrifices for the cause of freedom, accuracy, and reality. Everything in life doesn't have to be pleasant or agreeable to be worthwhile. And I think it is worthwhile to actually address the propaganda that is sprouted by the master of plasticity on behalf of the mistress of plasticity and her dolt of a husband. I'm sure you know who I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about Amid Scabies, who, it has to be said, goes to great pains to remind people that he is well-spoken, but not so well-spoken as to actually have got certain aspects of the English language under his belt. First of all, the truth, and secondly, various tenses to do with various verbs, etc. But we'll get to that in a moment. I think we should try to have fun with this, don't you? I mean, just because it sinks to high heaven doesn't mean that we can't laugh. So let's try to keep it entertaining and laughable, because really the whole thing is very laughable, in fact. The very first paragraph of the epilogue says, after months of maintaining a dignified silence, Harry and Meghan were ready to open up. Oprah, who had just a weekend to prepare for the prime time interview after getting word from the couple that they were ready to speak, would no doubt be sympathetic toward the couple during the 3.5 hours of time allotted, but all parties had agreed that no subject was off limits. She was prepared to ask anything, a source at Harpo, Oprah's production company, said. So there we get it. One propagandist to another on behalf of the dictators. She knew the couple well and the right questions to ask. Really? What? What? She didn't know the right questions to ask? No, she really didn't. They say she did, but she didn't. Otherwise, why wasn't she asking some of the awkward questions that all good interviewers ask? But anyway, but even she wasn't quite sure how willing they would be to speak openly about everything. Well, as we know, they spoke very openly about their hobby horses and also untruthfully, but this sets the tone for the whole of the chapter, which is one stupid assertion after the other, that only a fool can be expected to believe. After months of maintaining dignified silence. I suppose when Meghan said, The Queen doesn't own royal. That was silent. Just a little observation. Next one, in the next paragraph, it is in the days leading up to the interview, both Harry and Meghan, who was several months pregnant with their second child. Oh, was she? Was she? The interview was in February and the child was born. Of course, they always have to paint a picture, and the picture is always a false picture. She felt some nerves about what would happen after they shared details that they had not even told some of their closest friends. But there was a feeling of the time being now or never to speak up. There were so many things they were unable to say before stepping back from the royal roles, like, no, nobody asked me how I am. Nobody asked me if I'm doing okay. No, nobody at all. Can you imagine? Nobody asked. Now unable to say, the shackles of the institution never complain, never explain. Mantra were off. It was time to be honest once and for all. Notice how Scabies skirts over the fact that there are 17 provable lies in that interview, not to mention all of the half-truths. But we have Goebbels' word for it. Uncle Adolf knows where goodness lies, and he is going to make sure. So do we. I tell you, what a joke. Then he goes on. With the corona pandemic that forced the couple to move to California from their Canadian bolt hole. Sorry, wrong. From their Canada bolt hole. You see, if you're properly educated, you actually even read it correctly when it's incorrect. Or I think that's the opposite of what I meant. You read it incorrectly when it is incorrect. Earlier than planned the year before, still holding the world in its grip. That's the pandemic, of course. But we're now going to get Harry and Meghan holding us in their grip. Well, of course, we all know that's utter rubbish. They were not forced to move to California. They always intended to move to California. They were simply making arrangements to move to California. They had very cleverly and calculatingly understood that if they decamped to the United States of America, it would have caused a bigger hue and cry than lying and stating that they were going to be living within the Commonwealth. Okay, then we have, there were no hugs when they arrived, but Oprah's warm smile and words of encouragement put Meghan at ease. Gosh, it really did. I can see her thinking, even if, Scabies can't. Look at this schlump. I'm gonna be able to just pull the wool over her eyes because I'm gonna play the colour card and it's all gonna work brilliantly. One woman of colour to another, and she's gonna give me a free pass at every turn, and she did. She would be the first of the couple to speak, so Meghan was going to speak first. Well, we always knew that. having agreed to talk to the media mogul one-on-one. Excuse me, I mean, Scabies, you're British. It's not one-on-one. It's one-to-one. One-on-one is something that people do in the horizontal. One-to-one is something that people do vertically. It's called conversing. However, the Americanisms do creep in. As the camera started recording, the Duchess took a deep breath and started to share her truth. Well, we all know her truth was not the truth. I have to tell you, this chapter is basically a very well conceived con. There's really nothing new in it. It's all the regurgitations that Amid has been scratching us with as he scabies the Meghan comments and the Meghan rhetoric, and has been doing ever since he was appointed their Minister of Propaganda. There's nothing new in this chapter. It is one regurgitation of one falsehood and one fake scenario after another. But I have to tell you, I mean, Scabies and Meghan have fakery down pat. We must not ignore the fact that we should give credit where it is due. And Meghan Markle and Amid Scabies are two of the most artificial, contrived, unrealistic, unreal creatures that it has ever been my displeasure to clap eyes upon. They actually are stomach-churningly and stomach-turningly objectionable in their plasticity. You know, I have nothing against people who wish to enhance their looks. I think, great, you can, you want to do it, do it. But that's completely different from, as Phyllis Diller said about Michael Jackson's plastic surgeon, when they said, who do you think is the best plastic surgeon in the world? She said, Michael Jackson's. Anybody who can turn a black boy into a white girl's the man for me. And whoever has been doing the procedures on Amid, Scabies, and on Meghan, those two buffed creatures, buffed to within an inch of their life, polished not like marble, but like plastic. Bad plastic surgery is plastic surgery that is too obvious. Bad enhancement is enhancement that is too obvious. Amid Scabies and Meghan Markle are absolute advertisements for the fact that if you over-egg the pudding, the cake becomes inedible, but certainly repulsive looking, which is a pity, because both of them started out as reasonably good-looking people, and both of them have actually ended up in the attempts to enhance themselves physically, actually not improving their appearance, but actually conveying the message that they so basically despise themselves that they have actually ended up being completely plasticized versions of themselves. And I would recommend that you always listen to people's estimate of themselves. When somebody tells you they're a rotter, don't make excuses, believe it. When somebody tells you that they basically despise themselves so much that they have to convert themselves into something that they are not and that worse doesn't even look convincingly real. They're giving you a message, and the message is self-hatred. After a somewhat bumpy landing in California, Harry and Meghan's first months were surprisingly peaceful. While still in lockdown, the couple was quickly able to make new memories. Oh, God. You see what I mean? I mean, to make new memories. That's the sort of expression that you use with children. You say to children, okay, honey, we're going to go on that cruise, or we're going to go rafting down the Rio Grande, and we're going to make memories. That's not the sort of language that you use in a book. It is so puerile, but at every turn, what comes across as you read this book, not only the epilogue, but the whole of the book, is how completely vulgar, déclassé, really just tacky and super impressed with materialism and with arrivistism, if there's such a word. If there isn't, I've just made it up. That they come up with these puerile expressions. And of course, everything has a price tag in the book, you know, and every name that isn't worth mentioning is mentioned, doubtless for commercial advantage and commercial, shall we say, rewards. As they settled into the 9-bedroom, 7.4-acre, 18,671 square foot property. Beulah, bring me a cup of tea so I can cock my finger and show how pretentious I am. Come on, Beulah, bring me a cup of tea. Oh, and also peel me a grape at the same time, because I'm classy. Then, here is the coup de grace, which shows how completely out of touch with reality, how manipulative, how always over-egging the pudding he is. He's now, as I've just said, he's speaking about as they settled into the 18,671 square foot property. Beulah, where's my tea? Brackets, which, like nearly all average couples, they took a mortgage out on. Oh, God. There is no depth too great to which this man, on their behalf, doesn't stoop to, on the one hand, show how truly special and marvellous and extraordinary they are, and on the other hand, how in touch with ordinary people they are, that they're absolutely ordinary, that like all average couples, they took a mortgage. Not all average couples take a mortgage. Some average couples take a mortgage. But Harry and Meghan are not average in any way, shape or form. Do you see the complete dishonesty that is rife throughout this book? There is not one paragraph that somehow doesn't turn you off if you have any reverence for the truth and for straight shooting. You know, there are two ways of writing. I write seeking after the truth. Wherever the reality takes me is where I go. This man does the absolute opposite. He's not interested in the reality. He's interested in fabricating a false scenario with every form of manipulation that it is possible to come up with. I think it really is odious. I would recommend everybody save their money and don't buy this. piece of this block of manure hardened. Now speaking about their dedication to a life of public service. Public service, incidentally, you will discover as you read this chapter, because he can't completely lie. He has to get in just enough facts to cover so that down the line, when they're all exposed for what they are, that he can refer back. So there's actually information which I'm going to come to about Archewell, which shows that Archewell is not the non-profit foundation or charity that it is presented as being. And there is acknowledgement of that fact in this chapter a bit later on. But before we come to that, we need to, he's now telling us all the wonderful charity work or public service that Meghan and Harry did. The couple was photographed wearing masks as they went door to door in West Hollywood, dropping off food packages to vulnerable individuals. Quotes, people didn't even know it was them because they had their masks on, the charity's executive director, Richard Ayoub, said. Meghan wanted to show Harry Los Angeles through the lens of philanthropy. Well, we all know Meghan's favourite word is lens, so I have a feeling we can guess who wrote that little comment. They wanted to help us in any way they could, knowing the extra demand put on us by the pandemic. Funny, after they did the photo op, did we hear any more about them doing any of that again? And also, since their faces were covered amid scabies, how is it that they were photographed distributing these meals to the vulnerable people? Nobody knew who they were. Nobody knew who they were. They were masked. It wasn't possible to figure out who they were. How come there was a photographer there? You see the inconsistency? You see the manipulation? You see how we are supposed to believe that the truth is a lie and the lie is a truth. And that what I think we can call pharisaical posturing, you know, like the Pharisees. Oh, I'm so good, when they were anything but. Pharisaical posturing. And then they make sure we know about it. But if you read this book carefully and you know what to look for, it is a road map of exposure. It's exposing the manipulations of Harry, Meghan, their PR people, chief of whom is their Minister of Propaganda. That other noble Aryan, not Joseph Goebbels, amid scabies. He then continues. Throughout the months they remained visible, keeping focus on the UK organisations that British tabloids had falsely suggested they turned their backs on. I think they may have made 3 or 4 phone calls. So that means that they were right there, religiously supportive. He then articulates 2 or 3 things that they did, and you can depend on it. If there had been 20, we'd have had 20 mentioned, but there are only 2 or 3. And then Scabies ends this paragraph by saying, they will always focus on the work on both sides of the Atlantic, a source close to the couple said. It's now, they will never turn their backs on any of their relationships. Thomas Markle! Thomas Markle! Thomas Markle! Is it true that Meghan and Harry will never turn their backs on any of their relationships? Prince William! Catherine! Catherine! You were his substitute sister. Confirm to me that Harry has never turned his back on you. They never turned their backs on any of their relationships. Not even when they're personal, and definitely not once they're charity relationships. Oh no. Oh no. These noble beings are consistent, reliable, trustworthy, and always there. Actually, it's a camera that's always there. And when the camera isn't there, there's Goebbels to let us know how wonderful and noble they are. Despite the fact that the evidence resonates to the contrary. We now come to one of the many grammatical errors which I picked up, and I just couldn't resist it. I'm sorry. Scabies is saying, while official images of the couple showed Harry and Meghan enjoying their new life on the West Coast, they strived to keep certain aspects of their life private. Well, first of all, Mr. Scabies, I was taught strive, strove, striven. There's no such word as strived, Mr. Scabies. Not even when you're at Buckingham Palace, speaking to senior aides who are being friendly and gracious enough to comment on the fact that you seem so well presented and gentlemanly that they're actually surprised that you are a yellow journalist. And you then spin that and make it into racism. Strived. The word doesn't exist. Now he's coming into the self-justifying nonsense of Meghan and Harry going to California to maintain private lives, to get away from the public glare. So where do they head? To the center of paparazzi land. What do? Employ PR agents, one of whom, of course, is him. Not that he is paid directly by them, but he earns a good crust as a result of being their Goebbels. They go to California. They set themselves up as the alternative royal family for the rest of the world. There is no burp, belch, or other natural sound or unnatural event that is not accompanied by some flatus out of their mouths or some fecal announcement by their PR people. They are everywhere, commenting on everything. No other royal in the whole world does that. No other royal family collectively in the whole wide world does that. But they do it because they have given up public duties in England to seek a private life in America and share with the world. Share with the world their private moments. some of which they want to share with the world, and the others they don't. What they're sharing is their self-importance and their commercialization and prostitution of their royal roles, of their fame, of their celebrity. That's what they're sharing. However, here we go. But as much as they try to shield themselves, I would hardly call informing you and your colleague about their bowel movements in Africa shielding themselves. I would have called that a pretty gross intrusion not only into your own privacy, but into good taste and indeed into our observations. Because I don't think most of us want to know about the fact that you regarded Meghan as a spectacular crapper. But as much as they tried to shield themselves, paparazzi culture in the United States became a new threat. Oh my God. You see what victims these people are? Do you see? But fortunately they have Scabies to let you know how taken advantage of they are. How in the noble cause of making themselves as much money as they can. Oh, sorry, public service. Let's remember, we need to use the lie, not the truth. They are going to expose themselves on a daily basis, and they are going to use everything at their disposal. And no, the paparazzis, not the paparazzi Mr. Scabies, are not a threat. They are an instrument, just as you are. You may not know it, but those of us who have a brain in our heads can recognize that fact. Now he comes to something really interesting. During a July the 11th departure from a medical center in Beverly Hills, the couple was furious to discover that a photographer had been tipped of their presence. I think he means tipped off, not tipped off. But anyway, bad editing as well. But most books have little errors, so we don't need to go there. That could be just being petty. Naughty girl. Smack me. What should have been a deeply personal moment quickly became the top story on the Daily Mail online, with a dozen photos of the masked couple getting into a Cadillac SUV. The vulgarity is beyond belief. I mean, this man is so tacky, so materialistic, as is Meghan, that every single thing has to have a price tag, and the price tag has to be hinted at. Ugh, so vulgar. The article critiqued, no, there's no such word as critiquing. Critique is a French word that refers to, I am a critic and I have done something that is called a critique. A critique is a criticism. You can't critique anything. You criticize it. Criticize. I'm a critic. I criticize. I have issued a criticism or a critique. But no, Mr. Scabies, you can't critique anything. The article critiqued their outfits and made comments about their gas-guzzling choice of vehicle. Yes, it did, because they're the ones who've set themselves up as saviours of the planet, and we other people are not supposed to go on holiday, and we the people are not supposed to be driving gas guzzlers, but they, the pretentious pifflers, are allowed to do it. That's right. But what is really interesting about this is that this gives the date of when Meghan is alleged to have lost that supposed baby. And you will now, if you do the math, you will see that Meghan and Harry clearly are so overeager that they did not respect the period of time that a considerate husband would give his wife to recover from the earth-shattering loss that she stated that it was. But they were right in there to be able to produce. What's her name again? Elizabeth. But no, I think that's not the name. Lily, that's the name. Lily. The timeline is very tight, I've got to tell you. And there is the date, in case you want to know what the date is. There is the date. Now, he then goes on milking the supposed loss of the baby. And let me make the point. Of course, if you want a child and you lose it, it is a very regrettable and sad occasion. But a large percentage of geriatric pregnancies are terminated by nature itself. A very large percentage. And Meghan is of geriatric age for motherhood, but clearly so fecund that before they even reached back to the house, she was pregnant again. You begin to see why there are all sorts of doubts about these people's conduct and about what they're up to. Then he gets on to that rather distasteful, odious advertisement that she took out in the New York Times to share with the world. Her recounting of the stabbing pain that she had when Archie was in her arm. And she fell to the floor, making sure, of course, to hold Archie tightly, and noticed, I think it was a crayon. And, of course, when she reached for the crayon, singing a lullaby. I forget which movie that was a scene in, but several people told me it was a scene in a movie. I think it was a scene in a movie with Julia Roberts. But we have this rubbish here. Then he goes on that Meghan waited until the 14th of February. Poignantly, the same day British newspapers had announced that Diana was pregnant with Prince Harry. No link too obscure to be not milked by Harry, Meghan and Scabies for all it is worth and more than it is worth. February the 14th, in case Scabies doesn't know, is also Valentine's Day. And of course, we were supposed to have taken out the violins and celebrated the fact that Meghan was pregnant, hugely pregnant, and that she had lost the baby, but she now had another baby on the way. I tell you, The same day, British newspapers had announced that Diana was pregnant with Prince Harry, and this was done alongside a photo they took on the grounds of their Montecito home. Well, those of us who've done the math wonder why Meghan looked 9 months pregnant when she had February, March, April, May, June, carries babies the way anorexics carry elephants. Speaking openly about their life experiences is something the couple continues to do, he asserts. They certainly do, they certainly do. The problem is, at which point are Harry and Meghan invading their own privacy? And at which point are they being spoilt brats, demanding, like the owner of a dog, and the owner is a bad owner of a dog, so the dog can sit on the sofa on Tuesday but can't on Thursday. There's no consistency with these people, absolutely none whatsoever. I am afraid I am sufficiently correctly brought up to find it odious that any public figure who was not addressing a serious health issue such as cancer would be sharing their bowel movements with the public. I think that is the end in tastelessness. But they will insist on sharing, oversharing, supposedly intimate things, at the same time that they refuse to share conventionally acceptable information, such as the photographs of a baby. Of course, there are all sorts of good reasons why they may be withholding the photographs of the baby. But you know, I have 2 children. I made sure they stayed out of the public eye, and there was a tremendous amount of press interest in them. And the press were offering a lot of money for photographs of them, and then for information about them. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, to maintain the privacy of your child at the same moment that you don't play cat and mouse with the public and the press, which is what they do. And of course, I mean, Scabies is hopefully going to make good money at their behest and on their behalf. Now, we will continue on this line because I think it's important. Speaking openly about their life experiences is something that the couple continues to do, despite criticism from the British press, who say that doing so conflicts with their desire for more private lives. Yeah, it does. It does, it does, it does. But as Meghan has recently explained, so now here we have it. Here we have the, I want to eat my cake and I want to have it. And I'm entitled to do it because I'm a proud, confident woman of colour who's married into the royal family, and I have put them on the map. And all those dinky little old British people should know their place, which is somewhere down there beneath my feet. But, as Meghan has recently explained, there's a difference between entitled to the basic right to privacy and wanting to cordon themselves from their roles as public figures. Excuse me, babies, you're no longer working royals. You are public figures because you choose to be. You have no valid role to play publicly. None. None. You have no contribution to make, save in terms of flooding us with all sorts of rubbish. He now quotes Meghan, who of course, he's at pains in this version of the book to put distance between himself and herself, because she told the judge that she did not cooperate with this book, although they said in the previous version of it that they did cooperate with the book. So there they have to be consistent, because if they're not consistent, little things like perjury and maybe prison cells might be beckoning, not to mention huge awards of costs back to the people they sued. If you're at work and you have a photograph of your child on your desk and your co-worker says, "Oh my gosh, your kid's so cute. Can I see your phone so I can see all the pictures of your child?" You go, "No, this is the picture I'm comfortable sharing with you," she explained. And then if they double down and say, "No, but you already showed me that one, so you have to show me everything. You know what? I'm just gonna hire someone to sit in front of your house or hide in the bushes and take pictures into your backyard because you've lost your right to privacy because you shared one image with me." But I've never heard such a cockamamie fallacious argument in my life. But it is typical of the irrational, illogical, victimizing way that these people present themselves. If you show photographs of your children, nobody has the right to demand that they see every photograph of your child, and nobody would be demanding that right. Meghan and Harry, that's not what this is all about. And you are introducing a false fact to hide the truth of what you are about, which is you are manipulating the press and the public with a push and pull tease. On the one hand, giving a little bit, on the other hand, leaking a lot, on the other hand, pulling back, then pretending to be a victim. You have a whole narrative going here, a whole narrative that bears no relationship to any of the words that you are quoted as saying. And I'll tell you better, anybody who is tasteless enough to share their bowel movements with a journalist has surrendered the right to privacy. I'm sorry, you have. You absolutely have. It's so tasteless, it's beyond belief. They continue. Being unable to properly establish boundaries for their lives is one of the reasons the couple stood back from their royal roles. But Harry and Meghan still want to be able to share the parts of their lives they are comfortable with. They know they will forever be in the public eye to some extent. I'm sorry, I have to laugh. It's so ridiculous. Harry and Meghan did not leave Britain because they needed to establish boundaries with the press. As members of the royal family, they had their boundaries very securely delineated and established with the consent of the press. The press have also suppressed, I would say, a good 80%, if not 90%, of the negative stories that exist about Meghan Markle, especially in her very interesting past, as well as her rather dictatorial and manipulative present. It's rubbish. It is such a howler that you really have to laugh. He then goes on to justify. In November 2020, the couple had their own Remembrance Day commemorations when they left flowers at the grave of 2 Commonwealth soldiers and laid a wreath at the Los Angeles National Cemetery. That was an offence of the highest order. Harry has no status officially. If everybody who is famous and was once in the army did something like that, it would be chaos. Also, Harry and Meghan trampled over the graves, literally trampled over the graves, with a photographer so that they would be able to eke out a role for themselves in a situation where they play no part and have no place. Here comes the self-justification, which obviously came directly from them. And if it didn't, Scabies, who is as plastic as both of them, because don't make any pretense about it, Harry has gone down the route of plastic. So far, not physically, but in every other way, he's now as real as a $3 bill. As a proud military veteran, the Duke will continue to acknowledge annually the lives lost at war. So in other words, Scabies is informing us that Harry and Meghan intend to turn that exhibition into an annual event, notwithstanding the fact that all of the military were up in arms about it. In previous years, Harry would have been with the rest of the royal family at a televised memorial at London's Cenotaph, but due to travel restrictions, he had to stay put. Rubbish. He had no part to play. He had stepped down. You don't see Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie there. You aren't going to see Harry there. He had no part to play. I am going to read out something, not in this video, but in another video that I have received from one of the genuine war heroes of Afghanistan who served with Harry. And he accuses Harry of being a narcissist and a fraud. He's just one of many, incidentally. The poignant lease ring which the couple shared via a small set of photographs with media organisations was praised by many. I don't know your definition of many, Mr. Scabies, but mine is that the majority are the ones who praised it, and indeed it came in for round condemnation from just about everybody. Now we come to another victimhood. Poor me. To continue, and then we'll have to wrap up after this, because this is going to get too long, and if you would like, I will hopefully in the next video complete the rest of this chapter of absolute rubbish, manipulation and odious distastefulness. What few at the time knew was that Harry had in fact tried to mark the day differently by having a wreath laid in his name during the November 8th ceremony in London. Before he stepped back, a bright red poppy wreath had already been ordered for him with the British Royal Legion. Sorry, the Royal British Legion. I should know the name. I sat on the Poppy Ball Committee for many, many years. but I scrambled it, sorry. But as the day came and went, Harry's gesture remained in its box at the charity's headquarters in Kent. Yes, Mr. Scabies, yes, Harry, because they are outraged that you not only deserted your country, but that you and your wife have been trashing your and their commander-in-chief. Gah! Christ. I mean, you're dealing with people who are so imbecilic and so either incapable of recognizing reality or then quite determined to override it. And I think, sadly, it's the latter. Senior palace officials had denied his request for it to be laid at the National Memorial, with a Daily Mail report adding that the Queen took all of 2 seconds to exclude Harry's wreath from the service. Yes. Why do you think that is, amid scabies? No longer being a frontline royal was the reason provided, but Harry, said a close source, was saddened and disappointed by the decision. 10 years of service and a lifetime commitment to the military community, and this is how it's been acknowledged by his family. It's not only the family, Harry. I know members of the military. I've had one of the most famous members of the military here, and he tells me that your name is mud. The reason why the royal family took the decision to not lay your wreath down was that they were saving you the embarrassment of having people in the military condemn you for your desertion of your post as a royal and for your complete desecration of an officer and a soldier's duty to his commander-in-chief. It couldn't be simpler. You're not a victim. You're not poor me. How dare you be arrogant and impertinent enough to expect to dump everybody, swan off to California, hawking your wares and the wares of your chicken-foot wife, and that the military is supposed to go along with your dereliction of duty. How dare you think that? And then how dare you decide that you are the victim? You are the victim of your decisions. Be a man and accept the consequences and stop being a pathetic little mouse. Because that's what you come across as with all of this poor me nonsense. You're not a victim. You are an overprivileged, underappreciative brat. And it's about time you started to grow up. You may not be very bright, but even fools can grow up. And it's about time you started to. Because you're batting 40. You are middle-aged. You're not a child. It's about time that you and your wife spared us all this odium. Which, as I said, if you would like, I've read the chapter. I've made the notes. I am perfectly prepared to finish off the chapter in the next video if you would like. So please let me know, and on that note I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, keep the comments coming in, and my recommendation to you would be don't buy the book. Aside from anything else, the whole thing has been a monumental scam, and I'll tell you why it's been a monumental scam. because I know of several people who pre-ordered the book and got a copy of the old book. It was only after they had got a copy of the old book that they realized that the new book wasn't going to be for sale until the 31st of August. And there were no pre-orders possible. So this has been a very clever ruse played by the publishers on an unsuspecting public. But it doesn't surprise me. You know, if you mix in the gutter, don't be surprised if you come up smelling of the sewer. And thank you very much and goodbye.